There is a particular kind of silence that falls when everyone in a room knows the truth, and no one is willing to say it. Not because they cannot see, because they have decided, quietly and collectively, that seeing is too expensive. There is a particular kind of silence that falls when everyone in a room knows the truth, and no one is willing to say it. Not because they cannot see, because they have decided, quietly and collectively, that seeing is too expensive. We have all stood in that silence, at a meeting where the plan is obviously failing, in a crowd where the applause is obviously hollow. We knew, and we clapped anyway. Hans Christian Andersen published The Emperor's New Clothes in 1837. It is one of the best-known stories in the Western world, and one of the most consistently underestimated. It is treated as a fable for children, a lesson in telling the truth. But the thing that has kept it alive for nearly 2 centuries is something sharper. It is a story about why people agree to believe things they know are false, and about the social mechanics that make that agreement not just possible but inevitable. The story begins with a ruler who loves clothes. Not power, not territory, not the business of governing. Clothes. He changes outfits every hour. He has no interest in the army, the theatre, or the affairs of state, except as occasions to wear something new. His ministers learn to find him not in the council chamber, but in his dressing room. It would be easy to read this as satire of a vain ruler, but Andersen is doing something more careful. He is showing you a man whose entire identity is constructed from the outside in, a man who does not know who he is unless someone is looking at him and admiring what they see, and the court has organized itself around this need. Every courtier, every minister has learned that the way to survive is to admire, to confirm, to reflect the emperor's image of himself back at him with absolute conviction. This is the world the two weavers walk into, not a court of fools, a court of professionals, people who have made a career of seeing what they are expected to see. The weavers arrive and make their claim. They can create a fabric of extraordinary beauty, so fine that it possesses a remarkable quality. It is invisible to anyone who is unfit for their position, or who is unusually stupid. The weavers do not simply offer the emperor a beautiful garment. They offer him a test, a way to identify loyalty and competence in a single glance. And the emperor agrees, not because he believes the claim, but because the offer is irresistible. It promises him something more valuable than any garment. It promises certainty, a way to know who around him is genuine and who is performing. The irony is that the emperor already lives inside a performance. The weavers are not introducing deception into a truthful court. They are adding one more layer to a system already built on pretense. The weavers set up their looms and pretend to work. They request the finest silk and purest gold thread, which they pocket, and they weave nothing. They sit at empty looms, moving their hands through empty air with the concentration of genuine craftsmen. The emperor sends his most trusted minister to inspect the progress. This is the moment the story truly begins. Not with the weavers, with the minister standing before an empty loom and making a choice. He sees nothing. Of course he sees nothing. There is nothing to see. The minister is not a fool. He is experienced, respected, intelligent, but he stands in that room and he thinks, if I say I see nothing, it means I am unfit for my position. Everything I have built collapses in a single sentence. And so, he describes the fabric. He praises the colors. He admires the pattern. He delivers a detailed, enthusiastic report about something that does not exist. Not because he is weak, because the cost of honesty in that moment is higher than the cost of lying. A second minister is sent. He too sees nothing. He too delivers the same glowing report. But his lie is not quite the same. The second minister lies not only because he fears being called stupid. He lies because the first minister has already praised the fabric. To contradict the first report now would call the first minister a liar. It would destabilize the court. It would create a problem larger than an empty loom. Each subsequent visitor reinforces the lie, and each reinforcement makes the next descent more costly, more unthinkable. Andersen understood something that social psychology would not formally describe for another 120 years. Conformity is not a weakness of character. It is a survival strategy. And the deeper a group invests in a shared falsehood, the more dangerous it becomes to be the person who says otherwise. The fabric does not need to exist. The consensus is the fabric. The emperor himself visits the weavers. Accompanied by his retinue, he enters the workshop and sees the empty loom. Andersen takes us inside the emperor's mind. The man stands before nothing and experiences not confusion, but fear. Not the calm confidence of a ruler, but the private terror of someone who suddenly suspects that he might be the only person in the room who cannot see what everyone else sees. His ministers are praising, the weavers are gesturing, and the emperor, alone with his perception, makes the same choice every person before him has made. He praises the fabric, he commissions the garment, he schedules the procession. But the emperor's lie is not the same as the ministers. The ministers lied to protect their positions. The emperor lies because he has begun to doubt his own perception. When everyone around you describes something you cannot see, the question stops being whether the thing is real. The question becomes whether something is wrong with you. The garment is completed. The weavers mime dressing the emperor in clothes that do not exist. The court gasps with rehearsed wonder. The procession is announced. Most retellings present this as a scene of absurdity, a foolish man walking naked through the streets. But Andersen's version is far more disturbing. The crowd lining the streets is performing the same calculation that every minister and the emperor himself has already performed. They applaud. They describe the magnificence of the garments to one another. Each person stands beside their neighbor and praises what neither of them can see, because each assumes the other one can. The crowd does not believe the emperor is wearing clothes. The crowd believes that everyone else believes it. And against that weight of perceived consensus, their own eyes become unreliable witnesses. This is not foolishness. This is the ordinary, everyday surrender of private judgment to public agreement. It happens in boardrooms. It happens in parliaments. The mechanism has not changed since 1837. A child speaks. A small voice, clear and untroubled, cutting through the applause like a stone dropped into still water. The emperor has nothing on. The father hushes the child, but the words have already escaped. They move from person to person, gathering weight, gathering relief, until the whisper becomes a murmur and the murmur becomes a roar. Most readings celebrate the child as the innocent truth-teller, and there is truth in that, but Andersen's version is colder. The child does not change anyone's mind. No one in that crowd learns something they did not already know. What the child does is provide permission. A single voice says the unsayable thing, and suddenly the cost of agreement drops. Suddenly it is safer to tell the truth than to maintain the lie. The crowd does not have a moment of revelation. It has a moment of release. The pressure that held the consensus together breaks, and people rush toward honesty with the same urgency they brought to the applause. And the emperor? This is the most unsettling part. He hears the crowd. He suspects they are right, that there is nothing, that there has never been anything. And he continues walking. He holds himself straighter. His chamberlains lift the train that does not exist. And the procession goes on, because stopping would be an admission, and an admission for a man whose entire identity is constructed from the outside in would be a kind of death. This is what makes Andersen's story more than a fable. The weavers are gone. The trick has been revealed. The crowd knows. The emperor knows the crowd knows. And the procession continues anyway, because the honest reckoning with what everyone has participated in is more frightening than the lie. Andersen published this in 1837. It has not aged a single day, because the story is not about an emperor, and it is not about clothes. It is about the agreement we make every day to see what we are expected to see. To remain silent when speaking would cost us something we are not prepared to lose. The child was right. Everyone knew the child was right. And the procession continued. It always does.